The Jags want to beat the Texans for obvious reasons, but another reason might be because their future boss is watching. We'll talk about that today here on Locked On Jaguars.
You are Locked On Jaguars, your daily Jacksonville Jaguars podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
It is your team every day here on Locked On Jaguars. We thank you for making us your first listen. We also let you know that we are free to subscribe to wherever you hear or listen to your podcast. Make sure you check out that location each and every day so you do not miss an episode of Locked On Jaguars. Today's show is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use the code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Download Game Time today. What time is it? Man, it is game time. It's also time for me to get into what I'm going to talk about today here on the Locked On Podcast Network. Shout out to the everydayers who listen every day. And you'll know that we've been going through some of these things. We're going to talk about an audition on defense. What am I talking about? Well, we're going to talk about in the middle segment an audition on offense. And why am I saying audition? They're trying to win a game, man. Tell us about the ramifications if they beat the Texans, how they can win the division. I actually did that on the crossover episode from yesterday. What I'm going to talk about today, though, is this. Yeah, they want to win the game for obvious reasons. But before you win the game, you have to play well. And what if your future coach is watching? And that's what we'll get into. Normally when the Jaguars play, they play on Sunday. And they're not worried about their future coach. But we all believe that Doug Peterson may not last after this season. There's some people who are surprised that he's still here. There's also the belief that Trent Baalke, the GM, will not be here next year. There's some people that's also surprised that he's still here. So just in case that happens, I'm going to cover what might be going through the mind of some players that are trying to win just on Sunday. I hope the only thing that's going through their mind, I honestly do, is the Houston Texans. I hope that all of the football training that they've had since most of them have been playing since they were kids, that they would just be focused on the game that's in front of them because they're not mathematically eliminated from the playoffs. Now, we don't have to do that. We can pretend to be in the mind of those guys because sometimes that's what everybody does anyway, right? You pretend you know what everybody else is thinking. And we can say, what if your future coach is watching? You say, well, why would he be watching, Wig, when he's coaching his own team? There you go. Stop. Hammer time. Freeze. Whatever you want to say. Normally, it's just one Thursday night game. But on Thanksgiving, there are 3 games on Thursday. So that is 6 coaches that aren't preparing for their team to battle on Sunday. You look at the game that is going on Friday between the Raiders and the Chiefs. That's 8 coaches and 8 staffs that aren't paying attention. Now you get to the Sunday night game, and they're probably thinking about their own game. But there's a lot more coaches this week not coaching, and we'll have a chance to watch and observe some football if that's what they choose to do. And if you're Ben Johnson for the Detroit Lions, you're probably sitting there with one eye towards trying to win the Super Bowl and probably game planning on next week's opponent and all of that. But because you have a little bit of time, you've been hearing all of this talk about all of these people that want you to come be their coach. You saw firsthand Matt Eberflus basically try to give you a job yesterday in Detroit, right? And you got a firsthand look at a lot of the players off that other team. If y'all don't think coaches remember everything that they do, I'm not saying that Ben Johnson wasn't trying to beat the brakes off of the Bears and that be the only thing that that was his focus. But I tell you what, I'm sure that another part of his focus, like most coaches, when they watch football, they watch everything and they remember. That's how they know when it's time to get a job. I remember that guy. I had to prepare against him. I remember that coach. I remember, they were so prepared and they did such a good job. I really liked the way that they. So when you get an opportunity, you go back. That's how this is all. Everything isn't about nepotism. Everything isn't about just hiring people you have a relationship with. A lot of times these guys hire and remember players that they really respect and admire how they played the game when they were competing against them. Another thing that he could do, if he just has a little bit of time, he could peek in on the Jacksonville Jaguars. See where I'm headed? I got 5 minutes in before I told you this is all about me trying to see if Ben Johnson is watching the Jaguars game, because he already knows what Chicago has, and they have a young quarterback too, and they're in his division. And a lot of people said that the job that Ben Johnson has been waiting on is the Bears' job. But let's just say, just so he's doing his due diligence for the sake of our show today, that Ben Johnson is going to take a peek at the Jacksonville Jaguars and find out, let me see what they got down there. I want y'all to come along with me on this little journey where we're going to try to play along with this and say that, okay, this is who I want to play well. I want Ben Johnson to take this job over the Bears job. But if he takes this job over the Bears job with the Jacksonville Jaguars, what is he getting? Well, let's give him something to look forward to. Let's give him something that will entice him to say, yeah, I'd rather go down there and be somewhere where it's 78 degrees sometimes for most of the time between November and December. And I have all of the things that we have in Chicago. So what I decided to do today was two things. I want to go over an audition on offense, guys that could really, really, really convince him that he'd rather be here than somewhere else. And then I'll do it on defense. I'll also, in each one of those two segments, offense first, defense second, I'll say a guy who needs to show him that he isn't something that he needs to get rid of when he gets here. Like someone who, you have to wonder how good he is or whether he fits or what he actually is. People who could earn the most in case their future coach is watching today or Sunday. People who could earn the most or who could gain the most by proving who they are for the rest of the season. We'll talk about that. We're going to do it here today on Locked On Jaguars. Today's show is sponsored and brought to you by Game Time. Listen, man, Game Time is the place where all of us need to make sure we go when we need tickets to any sporting event. That's right. Whether it's a sporting event, whether it's a play, I don't care what it is. Could be monster trucks. Don't ever think that because you're late that someone doesn't consider that their emergency. You always hear that kind of stuff. Game Time does. Game Time will get you tickets. I don't care if the event is already started. If you download that app, you're going to be able to get tickets and get to that event. And you're going to know where your seat is because they have a curation process and seat views on the app. So you get panoramic view from your seat. So take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use the code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONNFL, LOCKEDON NFL for $20 off your first purchase. Download Game Time today. What time is it? It is game time. All right, segment 2 here on Locked On NFL for your listening pleasure. First of all, I got to tell y'all happy Thanksgiving, belated. And I hope you guys enjoyed your time with your family. Hope you got a good meal in, and I hope you are like me and you about to bust down on some leftovers today because they're always better, I believe, the second day. So we're going to make sure we get them in our system so that we can sit back and enjoy the rest of our weekend. The weekend that has the Jacksonville Jaguars hosting really a critical game. It's hard to understand why, how I can even say that with them being 2-9, but I explained those scenarios on Locked On NFL, and I explained those scenarios early in the week here on Locked On Jaguars, where there's actually a path to the Jaguars winning this thing out, winning all of these next games, which they can, if they play as well defensively as they did against Minnesota, and then they play as well offensively, they have a couple of times this season with Trevor Lawrence back, I think the Jaguars can win out. And if they win out, that would mean Houston would have to win more than one game. Houston would then have to win 2 of their last 5 games in order to secure the division. Houston has to get to 9 wins. They're currently at 7. If they end up at 8 with the Jaguars winning out, the Jaguars will win the AFC South. So with that being said, that's what they're playing for. However, I'm going to have some fun today with something else. I said, what if your future coach is watching? Your future coach could be anybody. It could be Grant Cohn. Is that his name? What's Liam Cohen? Not Grant Cohn. Grant Cohn out to San Francisco. Liam Cohen, the offense coordinator for the Bucks. But he has a game. He has a game. I'm talking about Ben Johnson, who got a first-hand look at the Bears yesterday. And the reason why I say that, the Bears probably going to fire Matt Eberflus with all of that foolishness. I hope y'all saw the end of it. I ain't going to rehash it. But the end of the game and the press conference were probably the thing that would seal the coffin of any coach with the way the Bears finished that game. And so there was always rumors that Ben Johnson wanted that job. But what can we do to convince him if he takes a peek in on the Jaguars and does his due diligence? What can we do, or what can they do to convince him to come here instead of going there? Well, obviously, Trevor Lawrence coming back from injury, Trevor Lawrence and Brian Thomas Jr., that combination needs to light it up tomorrow. I really want to see them get off. I think that's the biggest thing for any organization. So it's not necessarily an audition with Trevor. I just want them to play well. I want the enthusiasm, the teammates that they have, that they usually have for Trevor. I want it to show up, because sometimes when I watch the Bears, I don't see that with their quarterback. I barely see people picking him up off the ground when he's on the ground. I see more people holding their head down and putting their arms up like, what is he doing? And, with Caleb Williams, I don't see the interaction with him that I see Trevor Lawrence having interaction. So I would like Ben Johnson to look at Trevor Lawrence and say he's just as talented or more talented than that other kid. And here's the important part of it. He's a leader, and folks gravitate towards him. And I don't have to worry about him being a part, right, wrong, or indifferent, the way I may have to worry about another guy being a part. Okay. So that's the obvious one. That's the one that I want. I would love for Ben Johnson to look at and go, ooh, we got us something there. Now, as far as an audition is concerned, I believe the player that likely has the better chance, a guy who isn't just a shoe-in to be someone that a coach would look at and go, yeah, well, we gotta have, he's definitely a piece for us. I think Anton Harrison, with the way that Detroit plays, with their best lineman being a right tackle, who Penei Sewell is probably one of the best I've ever seen. It's hard to live up to, but they're going to be looking for a young player already on the roster. Okay, they're going to want to build this line of scrimmage. Whoever comes in here, if they make changes, they're going to want to build a line of scrimmage. So they're looking for either an anchor, or they're looking for somebody who could be a part of a stout line, someone that they already have, and it wouldn't hurt that the guy's on a rookie deal. I would say Walker Little, but Walker Little's about to hit free agency, and I don't think he's actually shown enough for anybody to say that he's an anchor. You already got a first-round pick in Anton Harrison under contract. Is he a left tackle? Is he a right tackle? Does he display the physical nature, and does he have the attitude that we need for us to be the type of football team we want to be? If that's the case, can he be that guy? So Trevor would be the, look at what we got over here. Come on, man. Anton Harrison will be the bonus. He is the guy, I think, for the rest of the season on offense, has the chance to show, whether it's Ben Johnson or Bill Belichick or whoever, whatever coaches that they might be considering, this is your chance to show them that you can be a really, really good player on a really, really good offensive line, and not just maybe the best player on a bad offensive line or an average offensive line. I think that's from the offensive side of the ball, that's where it is for me. That is where it is for me. Guys that somebody can look at and say, oh, we ain't got to worry about him. Now, this is going to sound funny to a lot of people, but when they look at the punter, that's what they think. When they look at the kicker, I believe that's what they think. They're like, no, we got us a kicker. We got us a punter. I'm telling you, we got us a number one wide receiver. We got us a quarterback. So I'm going to hit the defensive side of the ball. There's some here that are obvious. Joshua Hines Allen, Trayvon Walker. There's some obvious things for you, Oluwakan. But there's a couple that who can you show them? Who can you show your prospective coach? Look at this big shiny thing we got over here, man. This is one of those things, they don't have this everywhere now. And then who can be the guy on defense to say, look, I can be a lot better under a different scheme. Put me in a different situation, and I'll be a much better player. I'm going to tell you who I believe that is in the third segment here on Locked On Jaguars. Today's show is sponsored and brought to you by FanDuel. Our friends over at FanDuel will get you ready to tackle the NFL action all season long with America's #1 sportsbook. That's right. Because right now, new customers can bet $5, get $150 in bonus bets if you win. The FanDuel Sports Experience and Sportsbook app gives you everything you need to place live bets on the NFL all in one place. So when you get a hunch in the middle of the game, you can check out the latest stats, view live play-by-play, and so much more on the same page where you place your bets. Just visit FanDuel.com to join today. You'll get started with $150 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. That's FanDuel.com. Never waste a hunch and make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL. All right, running it down here, man, talking about hypothetical auditions, if you will, just in case the Jaguars fire their coach and their GM. And whoever's going to be the coach of the GM, even though they're in their other job today, in their other capacity, they might have a little extra time today to just go ahead and peek in and see a look-see on Sunday and say, what they got going on over there? Let me see. These people talking about they're going to fire that dude, and those folks saying they're going to come after me. But let me get a little look since I got a couple of hours here. Let me see some live action. I said Trevor Lawrence and the combination between him and Brian Thomas Jr., I think he could be one of the most prolific in the entire NFL. And I said Anton Harrison. Anton Harrison needs to let whoever's coming in now, whoever comes in here, Anton Harrison is going to be a part of the starting offensive line. But I want them to feel, I want them to be enticed that when they watch him, I'm not saying that they want him to be Penei Sewell. I'm saying that they can look at him and say, now that's something I can work with. That's something I can work with right there. That's what we're going to talk about here on the defense here in just a second. I can do the same thing for Joshua Hines Allen and Trayvon Walker and say, look, man, this is what you got. You got bookend edge rushers, right? I think they know that, though. I really do. And the difference here is Ben Johnson will have his hands directly on Trevor Lawrence, and he'll understand how that's going to be affected between Trevor Lawrence and Brian Thomas Jr. This is the defensive side of the ball. So this is like, okay, he's going to hire, if he hires a head coach of the defense, let's just say he hires Brendan Daly, the linebackers coach for the Chiefs, or if he hires Robert Saleh, who's right now kind of on staff with the Packers in sort of a role. What if he goes out and does something like that, right? Or brings in Jeff Olbrich, who's a pretty good defensive coordinator when all he thinks about is being a defensive coordinator. So, but anyway, what if he goes out and gets somebody y'all approves of? Who else on this roster can say, hey, nah, I'm one of the most attractive things too, besides those bookends on defense? I'm going to do this. I'm going to say Joshua Hines Allen, Trayvon Walker, and Foye Oluwakan in the front seven. That's the first thing I'm going to say. Okay, you got bookends, and you got a side-to-side linebacker who's a leader who can get people in the right spot, in and out of the right spots, and be the quarterback on the defense. If Ben Johnson is trying to convince one of those coaches to come coach with him, who can he point at? I think that's what he points at. I think if these coaches are torn between, if a coordinator is torn between another job, and just like Ben Johnson may be torn between Jaguars and the Bears, here's what Ben Johnson could say: I already got 2 pass rushers, and I got you a coach on the field. That's the first selling point, in my opinion. And the 2 pass rushers are both guys. One has already been paid. Another one, you can put the 5th-year option on him, and you can get 2 more years out of him before you have to pay him. But they're also character people. And they do the dirty work. They can both stop the run. They can both rush the passer. Foye Oluokun is a tackling machine who's also not just a great physical player, but he's a smart player. He's another coach on the field with a lot of football character. They have guys like that on this team in those three players, and maybe a couple more. Who needs to show something that they can be a part of a team that's going to be physical and fast, like, say, the Detroit Lions, or that can play a sort of physical and fast brand of football that I think fans want to see here, maybe from like a Robert Saleh. Who can do that? Who can show the future coach, who can be an extra piece other than the ones I already mentioned, who can actually prove something so that coach can choose to come here or want to come here? Devin Lloyd. And I have not been the biggest Devin Lloyd advocate here on Locked On Jaguars, and I think everybody knows that. I have not been the biggest Devin Lloyd advocate. I liked him when he came out. I was just tripping that they traded up for an off-ball linebacker into the first round. It was more or less, that was, Devin Lloyd represented something that I thought Trent Baalke did that was dumb. Then Devin Lloyd represent a guy who can't play. But what Devin Lloyd is he's the poster boy or poster child for Trent Baalke picks. And I know some people will say Trayvon, but I think Trayvon put in enough of the hard blue collar stuff and the glue stuff that makes a team good. I think we knew Trayvon was not going to be bad. Anybody who watched him knew, whether you thought he was worth the number one pick or whatever, that's irrelevant. But you knew he was going to be, at the very least, you knew he was going to be a real solid pro because of who he is and because of how he played and where he played and what he was willing to do from a team perspective instead of chasing numbers at Georgia. And with his physical skill set, you would have had to be, he would have had to be the bust of the century to not turn out to at least be a very good NFL player. So beyond that, Devin Lloyd to me is the poster child for Trent Baalke because it was all traits and he didn't have a position. In the position that he's playing in the NFL, he didn't really play that in college. He was like a safety / outside linebacker / move him around / pass rusher. And he plays like he didn't have one position. But the one thing you cannot say about him is he's not athletic. You can't say he doesn't take on guards. You can't say he doesn't fly. You can't say he doesn't make downhill open field tackles. You can't say that he does not play hard. I'm telling you, that can always be something that could be used by another coach. There might be a coach out there like, say if you're Bill Parcells, right? You're looking at it saying, I know exactly how I would use that guy. And maybe Ben Johnson is the type of coach that'll say, I know exactly how I use that guy. I don't know if he fits that regular standard 4-2-5 kind of defense that a lot of people, I don't know, because I think Ventrell Miller is better off with Foye Oluokun in as the 1-2 in that setup for Jacksonville. So I don't know if that's where he fits. I do know he better show something because he's in the last year of his deal, and I would doubt very seriously if the Jaguars are going to pick up his. Well, there's no fifth-year option. He's a second. Well, he does have a fifth-year option. I doubt if they pick it up. And then you got Chad Muma, who's pretty much in the same situation. Tyson Campbell's under contract. Whoever comes in here, they better like him because if they don't, there ain't nothing they can really do about it. So that's why I chose Devin Lloyd with maybe a backup part of that being Chad Muma. Show him something, man. Show him that you're a reason, or you could be a reason why if they put you in a different situation, you can still be a really good player here for the Jacksonville Jaguars on a really good team. It's a difference when you're talking about just playing a lot or being on a really good team. So audition. Let's just pretend in our heads that the next coach is going to be Ben Johnson, and he's taking a peek Sunday to see what happens. I want y'all to tell me who is stepping up. Well, after you watch the game, we'll talk about it on postcast. Hopefully we'll be talking about a win, and then we'll mention it. We'll say, okay, who today look like they really want to be here long term other than the obvious people? and who played well enough to entice a coach to take this job instead of taking some other job. Those are the things I want to look at. I'm looking for guys that want to be here long term. This is what you got to do when you think the coaching staff that you currently have is not going to be here long term. All right, man, make sure you guys check out Locked On NFL each and every day. It's a double shot of espresso, hitting you upside your head early in the morning with the madman Tyler rolling, and then laid back and chill here in the barbershop where we get all in everybody else's business. Make sure you check out Locked On NFL twice a day, wherever you get podcasts, and even check it out over on Amazon Music. All right, you guys take care of each other. Enjoy it. We'll see you Sunday for a postcast about an hour after the game ends on Sunday here in Jacksonville between the Jaguars and the Houston Texans.